everybody for coming along. As I said, there'll be time at the end to answer any particular questions that you might have, because I'm sure you will have some. So I suppose just as a background to the programme, so the programme has been running since 2022, and it's the only one of its kind in Ireland, and it was designed in partnership with LNDI, so Learning and Development Institute, really as a means of supporting you, the L&D practitioners, to be kind of more strategic in your role within your organisation. So overall, the aim is really to support people to adopt an L&D leadership positions professionally. So obviously there's a professional development part, and then just to support you to develop insights in how you can elevate L&D to a more strategic level within your organisations, and to integrate L&D with the strategic direction of your particular company. So that's kind of like the overall objectives of the programme itself. As I said, it is designed in partnership with Learning and Development Institute, and there is some Skillnet funding available for those of you that are in private organisations. So that funding is on a first come first served basis. So how you find out whether you're eligible and whether you can still get that funding, I'll talk about at the end of the presentation. By all means, stop me at any particular point during the presentation if you have any questions, or else you can wait until the end. I don't mind being interrupted. Okay, so I don't know, Kevin, do you want to say a few words first in terms of from the profession where the programme sits and why it's important? I think Kevin has frozen. No problem. We might kind of go back, and then hopefully he'll be able to join. So just in terms of the business school, so as I said, DCU Business School has collaborated with L&DI in terms of designing this particular programme. And as I said, we kind of curated it with feedback from L&DI. So as a business school, executive education is a key part of what we actually deliver. And so we are a large school, so we have over 3,300 students. We have a kind of a broad suite of executive education programs that we deliver. We are a triple accredited school, so that means that we are in the top 1% of international business schools who are the holders of the 3 coveted international business school accreditations, with our AACSB, EQUIS and AMBA, and we also have other accreditations that build on our expertise in terms of, the Small Business Charter, Chartered Accountants Ireland, and so on. So we do a lot of work in the executive education suite, and it's one of the key things that we try to do is really around bringing our research and our research expertise into our actual teaching, and kind of one of our USPs really in terms of our executive education teaching is very much centered around, the individual's personal growth while they're on the particular program. So it's not about just delivering lots of content. It's much more around learning from each other, and really to try and think about, your mindset as an L&D professional, your personal growth in terms of, greater personal agility, more enhanced self-awareness, and thinking around your understanding of a broad range of topics and how they can be applied to help you solve complex workplace problems. We've designed this programme really around those particular values of what we want a graduate from the MSc and Strategic L&D to come out with at the end. In terms of the programme structure, I suppose this is kind of overall what we're looking at. So there are like a suite of leadership modules that we deliver. So there's the strategy, organisation and innovation module, which is delivered in the first semester, which is really about getting the students to understand, key management concepts within the organisation and the external environment. So as I said, most of the people on the programme are within the L&D functional area, and it's really just kind of giving them the language of what is kind of strategy to help them understand their organisations themselves. Then there's leadership and change that comes in year 1 in the second semester. And again, the purpose of that module is really quite multi-layered. So it's really trying to understand the concept of leadership that exposes you as the practitioner to try and enact some kind of change So it looks at things like leadership theory, and the impact of a leader in terms of trying to sustain or develop change in an organization. And cutting across year 1 and year 2, there is a personal career development modules. So these 2 modules are really the kind of the reflective part to get you to think about, you know, your insights and your skills. And as I said, that runs across year 1 and year 2, and it's really to give you the opportunity maybe to reflect on how you work, your key areas for personal development, and maybe kind of support your efforts to try and maybe achieve change in how you work as a particular professional. Then we have a suite of applied L&D skills modules. So again, these are kind of like the kind of the functional part of the L&D part of the program. And again, so in year 1, you will do a digital learning design module. In year 1, semester 1, there is kind of like an introduction in terms of learning and development from design to evaluation, and that will take kind of a more critical perspective in terms of some of the theories that you might have come across already. So it aims to really kind of maybe debunk some of the myths and fallacies in terms of learning and development design. We have HR data analytics and storytelling, which is kind of more people analytics, and the importance of evidencing the arguments that you make to an organization and using data to back that up. Then we have the strategic learning and development module, and this is a really, really important one because it really around thinking about the strategic role of learning and development in organizations. So this is a critical key capstone L&D module within the program itself. So it tries to evaluate the links between strategic learning and development and individual, team, and organization performance. So it is thinking about how can you ensure that you're not just looking at a lot of ad hoc initiatives, but really that you're much more strategic in terms of what the L&D function does to ensure that you align with the overall business objectives of the organization. And then we have a contemporary issues and future of learning and development module. And this is really around trying to explore some of the current issues that might impact on your role in terms of learning and development and think about some future trends. And then finally, we have a capstone modules. So in year 1, you will do a research methods module. And again, that is really just to kind of give you the tools to be able to conduct the strategic L&D consulting project, which takes place in year 2. So the strategic L&D consulting project starts in year 1 and runs all the way through year 2. And our current students are coming towards the end of it at the moment, so they might be able to give you a little bit more information on that. But really, it's an action research project. So it's in collaboration with a client organization, where you try to help work with the client to overcome a complex or ambiguous organizational challenge. So it is putting you out of your functional comfort zone and really making you look at what is a challenge that's at the organization. So the aim here is this is really going to pull together all the learning from year 1 and year 2, so that by the end you will have explored an organizational level challenge and really understood the organization as a whole, to be able to identify recommendations, and particularly recommendations that might be L&D focused, so that it's kind of aligning with the fact that you can understand the organization at the organizational level, understand the business needs, and as an L&D practitioner, you can make recommendations to support the organization to overcome those particular challenges. So in terms of the program delivery, so this is a blended program. So the majority of the program will be delivered online through Zoom, but we do have some contact point days where you are on campus, and we've decided to design these in because of the social interaction and the networks of the class itself, and obviously for us to get to know the class and for the class to get to know the lecturers as well. So the program runs part-time over 2 years, and it's delivered online 1 evening per week. And so it is going to be on a Tuesday, and I just see there's a big typo. There's no typo there. So it's going to be on Tuesday evenings from 4 to 6:30 through Zoom. So you'll have 2 classes, so an hour and a half from 4 until 5:30, half-hour break, and then from 6 to 7:30. And in between that, there will be 3 on-campus days. So 1 day on a Tuesday, 9 to 5 in week 1, in week 6 and week 12. So each year there's 2 12-week semesters. So the on-campus days are usually kind of bookended, week 1 to week 12, and then a day in week 6 as well. And we found that those contact days are really important, particularly for collaboration around the strategic consultancy project, or the personal development module, which is much more around kind of the facilitation that's better to be being done in class live rather than online. The assessments are designed with, you know, executive education in mind, that you're all working and that you want to take the learnings back into the workplace. And so they are very much through continuous assessment rather than exam, and investigating, you know, challenges or business issues, you know, within your own organization, as opposed to things like essays or something that requires you to, that's not necessarily applied. All students are going to be assigned to work together in one team in year 1 at the induction workshop at the start. And those teams will change in year 2, with the exception of the consultancy project, where you'll stay with your year 1 team for that particular one, because you started in year 1. And the strategic L&D consultancy project is our capstone project. It's weighted in terms of 25 credits, so it is important, and we spend a lot of time in year 1 and year 2 supporting the students through it. So it's team-based, and as I said, work commences in year 1, and then it's completed in year 2. As I said, current students just nearly crossing the line, but they're still smiling. So sorry. So I'll just very quickly just talk about the entry requirements. And in some ways, you know, if you're unsure whether you fit with the program, the easiest thing is to get in touch, and we can guide you on that. So an honors degree and significant work experience, and ideally significant work experience in the broad domain of people management with some element of L&D within it. So a 2-1 honors degree in a related discipline, and a minimum of 3 years work experience within kind of people management L&D. And applicants who've achieved a 2-2 may still obtain a place. That depends on availability, and obviously thinking about your work experience as well, because we know that sometimes how people pivot into L&D isn't necessarily always straightforward, and we have people with theology and computing and physics and science backgrounds who are on the program as well. Obviously, we take people through recognition of prior learning if you've got a significant amount of work experience and you have other types of professional qualifications. And again, that would be subject to an interview that you can evidence that as well. So, but by all means, if you don't have the honours degree, that doesn't preclude you from applying. But again, it depends on your work experience and any other qualifications that you might have. But as I said, if you're unsure, you can just touch base and we can guide you on that. So I don't know if Kevin is back, if he wants to say a few words.
I am, Margaret, and apologies.
You're okay.
You would think 4 years into working remotely, I would have this sussed, but my iPhone and iPad decided to overheat, and I'm parked at the side of the road, so I had to dial out. So thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm representing the Learning and Development Institute. My name is Kevin Hannigan. I'm a director of the Institute and a former past president. And as Margaret mentioned at the start of the presentation, this program, this is now, when we get started with this program, it will be the 3rd cohort. And it was a long time in gestation. It's the first program of its type. And it was one we spent a long time thinking about and a long time planning for. It really stemmed from lots of both Irish and international research on the position of the learning and development function in organizations, and individual conversations with learning and development leaders in Ireland and internationally, where the focus at an organizational level was building the credibility of the function to effectively influence the strategic development, the strategic implementation of the organization, but also increasingly helping the organization develop a sustainable approach to the development of skills and a sustainable approach to work and to life. And so that's what we were seeing at an organizational level. And then at a personal and individual level, was the need for learning and development leaders to elevate their own capability, their own ability to influence, their ability to use evidence-based decision making as part of their recommendations and as part of their engagement with their organizations. So Margaret will have the precise numbers in terms of numbers of people coming through on each cohort. I know one of my colleagues is doing this program at the moment and has benefited enormously from it, not just from the sheer breadth of knowledge that Margaret and the DCU team bring to the program, but also from the opportunities to network and build a community of peers who all have the same motivations in terms of elevating it. It has the full support of the Learning and Development Institute in terms of everything we can bring to bear on it. It is very much our flagship program, and we're really excited to support it and to continue our partnership with DCU.
Thanks, Kevin. And before I forget, if students who register on the program become L&DI members for the 2 years that they're on the program as well. And as Kevin said, so obviously L&DI have been a huge support in terms of developing the program and helping us build it and develop it. And the students, as I said, this is the third cohorts that are coming in. The students being L&DI professionals have really been really important in terms of helping us co-create the program and the content. So things are changing and amending depending on the feedback that they give us. So, that has been really useful as well. Just in terms of the people who teach on the program, I mentioned the modules, but I didn't talk about some of the people. So we would have had Professor Claire Gubbins, who is professor of HR and OB here at the Business School, and her area of expertise is very much centered around strategic learning and development and evidence-based management. Professor Brian Harney, who is a professor of strategy and HR, so he delivers the strategy module. Professor Finian Buckley, who is an organization psychologist, and he delivers the learning and development, debunking all the myths about the theories of learning and development. I teach on the program in terms of research methods. Dr. John Noonan is the lecturer who guides the students through the action learning, and his lovely swirls and diagrams in terms of the strategic consultancy project. Dr. Melrona Karan is an organization psychologist, and she teaches the leadership and change module. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. Dr. Orna Farrell is within the Institute of Education, and she teaches around digital design and learning as well. So I don't know, in some ways, there's probably lots of questions that you have, but in some ways, I always say the best way you hear about a program is from hearing about students who, usually we have somebody who's finished, but because this is a new program, we have some students who are just coming close to the end, who can talk about their experiences. As Kevin said, one of the big things for us is to bring a group of people together to learn from each other and to build a network. And we've got lots of examples of people who have been promoted or pivoted or changed into roles that they really wanted to as a result of the program itself. So I will invite maybe Orla's the person I see. So Orla, do you want to say a few words and introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, and thanks Margaret. So my name is Orla Farrell. I am Head of Talent, Learning and Development in Musgrave. And do you want me to go through my experience, Margaret, at this stage? Yeah,
maybe kind of give a quick background and maybe talk about what you got from the program.
Yeah, so I kind of came on the program with a view that I had been thinking about doing a master's for some time, but I hadn't really found the right program, and thankfully this program came along. I'd previously done a HDIP in coaching and coaching psychology, but I was looking for the next level, and I definitely wanted something that was about learning. But a lot of the programs were more about education. And for me, it was about a program that was more linked to my organization that I could learn from and develop my strategic knowledge and awareness. I also, one of the things that was really important to me as well was being able to learn from fellow students. And I think the program has definitely given me an opportunity to achieve both of those things. And if I think back as to kind of key things that I've got, I definitely feel I've learned a lot more about strategy. And, you know, there's always that sense, or I personally had that sense of maybe imposter syndrome when I would be dealing with some of our very senior executives. Musgrave is a very large organization. We support about 41,000 jobs together with our retailers. So that sense of imposter syndrome is kind of gone now, because I feel like I definitely can support and challenge in maybe a more appropriate way. And I was lucky enough that the action research project that we did was for my team was in Musgrave. So I learned a lot more about our organization as well. And thankfully our presentation to our senior leaders went really well. So that always helps with your credibility as well. So definitely it helped increase my self-awareness as well. That was probably a surprise to me. I didn't think I'd necessarily get as much from that as I did. And that subsequently helped my confidence as well. And as Margaret mentioned, a big part of the program is learning from your fellow colleagues, and I definitely have increased my network of L&D professionals, and that's really handy. You know, when you have a question and you're looking maybe for a contact for something, you can reach out to people, and obviously whether they're in our direct team or not, they're really very willing and able and helpful. And what I'd say is, you know, I love the balance of the program. I live in Galway, so for me, the fact that the program is hybrid was really helpful, because it meant that I still had the benefit of coming together with my classmates and the academic team in DCU, all of whom are really helpful, both helpful and informative, supportive and challenging. And what I would say is, you know, there is work, but and I think if you ask me next week, I'd be in a better position to say it's all 100% worth it. And I would still say it's definitely worth it, but we'll be finished by next week for our group, please God. So yeah, it's hard work, but do you know what? Things that are worth doing sometimes do require a wee bit of work. And I'm really glad that I've done the program. So yeah, that's me. Happy to answer questions, but maybe Ria, it's probably for you to
Thanks,
speak.
Orla. Appreciate it. Ria, so if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks. Or that's great to hear your reflections as well. And you had mentioned, Margaret, that we were kind of close to finishing, and our team actually just handed up our final assignment on Monday. So we were like skidding in there 10 days early, feeling great about it. And it's just to say, I suppose, even in that, like, once the team commits together about what they want to achieve, I think anything is possible. They set the deadline as they set the deadline to kind of get everybody going, but you can kind of put the fire under yourselves as well. So I had to think about some of the things just from the kind of the outset and the things that I had learned. So what I had hoped at the beginning and kind of what I was looking for, similar to Orla, I had been looking for something from a business kind of master's perspective. I have a BA and I have an MA already. And so I'm the one who Margaret mentioned about coming from a theology background. I studied theology and music, which at the time when I was young, I was like, what is job? But the more I got into my career and the more I developed, I ended up finding myself working with people, working on training, working on development, working on kind of helping people find the best in themselves, find their kind of place where they thrive in work from a volunteering perspective and from a staff perspective. So I actually just remembered that when you had said it there, Kevin, that you'd been talking about it for a long time. And I remember 7 years ago, at least 7 years ago, I met Sinead and I was asking her, you know, here's where my career has been, here's where I want to go. Should I do one of the programs that you have? And she had said, no, wait, actually, there's a program we're working on. We'd hope to collaborate to have a proper, like, structured master's program. I think that's the right one for you. You kind of ticked all the other boxes. And I'm glad I kept my radar open, because it kind of landed in my lap, and I was able to kind of make the decision. So yeah, it was a long road to get there, but definitely I was looking for something with rigor and depth, something that was going to be T-shaped. So, like, you know, I get some broad experience, but go deep on particular areas. And I think because of the collaboration, it's been really well thought through. Like, all the pieces fit together really, really well, but they challenge you. And I wanted something that would be applicable. So whether I decided at the end of it that L&D was my home forever, or I decided actually maybe I'll continue to have a kind of squiggly career, I don't know. I'm still kind of in that place as well. I found that everything that I was learning is absolutely applicable to the area that I work in now in alumni relations and in working with people. I work in UCD, and every time people are like, oh, great, you finished your master's in, and are you studying at Smurfit? I'm like, no, actually DCU, it's a brilliant program. So it's worth it. It's worth it to jump ship. Just to say that, like, definitely I feel like it's a foundation for the next phase of my career, but it's not like I'm learning something entirely not applicable to what I'm working at the moment. I just put a couple of notes down from my own experience. It was really challenging and enriching. As Orla mentioned as well, super insightful to work with people with such different backgrounds and such different perspectives. Even from going from like having, you know, the Monday, the night before drink with everybody before we go into the class, the kind of full day sessions together on campus. I think we just really grew together as a group. You actually work with my group. We worked really intensely together with 5 other people. And we just learned so much about each other. I think teamwork can be a daunting part of the process because you're like, oh, are they going to work the same way as me? Or, you know, am I going to find it frustrating? That certainly was a highlight for me. As maybe Margaret, I think you mentioned about the evidence-based decision making. I think that was one of the biggest highlights for me. I'm constantly going, actually, what's the evidence for this? Who speak, you know, and it's not just the people who are speaking the loudest, but where, you know, where can I actually find the best available evidence for any decision that I'm making? And I can see that in terms of reputation. Or you mentioned like within your senior team as well. I've got a promotion since starting the program, but equally, I think I'm being recognized more and more as somebody who's operating at that senior level, somebody who's thinking about kind of how the business should grow, what kind of decisions we need to make from a strategic perspective. I think that definitely is a credit to the program and the work that we've done on the program. I think another highlight for me was the top-notch lecturers and people who are experienced and experts in their fields. And then I'm just curious, I suppose, to hear about the questions that yourselves you have as people who are kind of questioning whether this is the right thing for you. And I think we can either dispel myths or encourage you, because I think we've been through a lot together. We learned a lot. So I have a couple of pieces of advice, but I might wait till the end once we've answered some questions.
Okay, so thanks so much, Ria and Orla, for your truthful reflections. And you know, it is important because it is a big decision, as you both said, to commit to 2 years of study. So it is important to kind of be kind of truthful. So Michael sends his apologies. He had a meeting and he was going to sign on at 1:30, but he wasn't sure if he was going to join us, so he hasn't managed to make it. But I think Orla and Ria have really, I think, kind of given a really good grounding in terms of, you know, what you can get from the program itself. So just in terms of next steps, as I said, there is Skillnet funding available. So if you want to drop Eva herself an email to see if you might be eligible, please do. So that's her contact details here. To actually get the Skillnet funding, however, you have to apply through DCU, through our actual system, and be made an offer. So you can't contact Eva and hold it without actually applying. So you have to apply for the program itself, but feel free to contact Eva first, just to see if you might be eligible. And just for more kind of program queries and more detail on what I just showed you there's a link to our landing page, how you can apply, the fees and requirement and so on is all there. And if you have any additional queries, you can send the email to dula.lonergan@dcu.ie. I know there was 1 or 2 queries about whether you might be a fit, even though you mightn't be in L&D per se. So we can try and answer your questions there and follow up with a call. So does anybody have any other questions on that? Yeah, there's a chat there, sorry.
Oh, sorry, that was just me saying if you want to reach out by LinkedIn, if you have questions that you didn't want to bring to the group, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ria. Okay, so listen, thanks so much. As I said, please follow up with any queries you might have, or if you've experiencing any difficulties in terms of how to apply. One of the things, if you're applying, we do require your transcripts to be able to make an offer. And sometimes it can take, if you're very organized, you might have them in a drawer somewhere. But if you don't, and you have to go back to your institution, there is usually a timeline that's whereby it can be anything from 10 days to 4 weeks in some institutions. So if you are going to apply and you don't have your transcripts, just make sure you actually put a request in to get your transcripts now, because we won't be able to make an offer without the actual transcripts itself. So that's not the parchment, but the actual transcripts itself. But as I said, feel free to touch base with us if you have any particular questions, and that might have come up as you're going through the content, or something you've thought about afterwards, and hopefully we'll be able to answer.